Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific. Of course, I say every Monday, and of course, we're going to be off next Monday. So not entirely true, but most Mondays, we will be off for Labor Day. We'll be back on the 12th of September, and we'll keep it right on rolling. As always, I'm here to answer your mind-body questions, any questions you bring up or observations, things you want to share. We're really trying to get people the knowledge that they need to get better across the board. As always, we're working with my column system. So the emotions column, the doubt column, and the power column, they each have different functions. They each have different ways that we work with that, and we analyze each moment on this show here today and anytime you're asking me questions. Just a reminder that if you need basic information on mind-body information, a way to get all of that information culled into an organized system and a way to understand what's out there in the mind-body community, well, my seminars do that. My next seminar is coming up Monday, September 19th. These are 8 different sessions, 75 minutes long, Monday through Thursday for 2 straight weeks. Please email me at dan@crushingdoubt.org if you have questions about it, and I can tell you how you can get the basic information you need. From there, we move to the group memberships where people practice this moment to moment. So once you have the basic information, if you need some help going over these things, that's what the groups are for. They're incredibly supportive. It's a great community, one of the best I've ever seen. And I'm talking about the group members, not just me. But it is a great way to get your mind-body questions answered. So lots of affordable ways to do it. Please let me know if you have any questions. I see Lucy Oden has joined us here and Daniel Starkey on Instagram. Good to see you both. And please do let me know if you have any questions. We've got some questions coming in from YouTube, so we will start with that. But a little bit of a reminder that if you are not able to join us live and you still want your questions asked, you can send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org. And we can get it in the preloaded questions. We often do get to at least a couple each time. So if you really have a question you need answered and you can't attend live, please send that question to me. Okay, Jane Smith, good to see you here on YouTube. Jane says, hi, Dr. Dan. Thank you so much again for being here and answering our questions. It is my pleasure. You are very polite. You're what we call a goodist in mind-body ideology, which is somebody who's always doing their best for people. And I love people like that. I love goodists. But I also want to help you not have symptoms while you're doing the goodism. Okay, here's Jane's question. Emotions column question. Symptoms worsened, severe trauma exacerbated by top pros not believing impact professionals. Was the theme wrong? Is undistracted not enough? I'm curious about what you mean by undistracted, Jane. Let me know if there's something more you need to say. Do I need to process remaining feelings? If so, how? Okay, so Jane's asking some really good questions, and I see Catherine Toomer has joined on Instagram as well. Good to see you, Catherine. Jane, here's what I want to say, and this is something that happens in the groups a lot. People will ask a question, and there's lots of good stuff in it, but I think that we can get some information, further information from the questions, things that are underneath it. So here's what I want to ask you. You're saying that the symptoms worsened, and essentially your basic question is what happened? But you're providing information as well. Severe trauma exacerbated by top professionals not believing the impact. Now, before I can answer the question, was the theme wrong? I'm not sure what is undistracted, not enough. I think there's either a typo or something I'm not understanding, so explain that one more. But was the theme wrong, or do I need to process remaining feelings? If so, how? Those are all great questions, and let's leave this up here. But what I want to do, Jane, is do some follow-up. If you don't mind, I want you to share with me what you mean when you say severe trauma exacerbated by top pros not believing the impact. What I want to hear is the specifics about that, if you're willing to share them, because the specifics are where you're going to find the right details that can get you answers and relief. So it's interesting because you're asking the question, should I be asking more detailed questions? Do I need to delve in more? And in a way, at least in terms of what I need to know about it, I need to delve in more. I need to find out more. What happened here? Ultimately, if your symptoms worsened, that is an uptick of a symptom. So in my system, that means we are looking in the emotions column. And you said it's emotions column question, so you're right on with that. But the question is, what happened? What was the present day experience that may have mirrored something from the past? So, Jane, if you're comfortable, let's do a little bit of follow-up. Tell me more about it. That's the kind of thing I'd be asking in the group anyway. If you don't want to share it, that's totally fine. I can give you examples that would be hypotheticals. But it'll go even smoother and probably more enlightening to other people if I hear from you about what happened for you. Okay, Dorisa says, hi Dan and everyone. Good to see you, Dorisa. Rhonda Johnson's here with us. Hi, Dr. Dan. Very good to see you. And Edgar Rivera is here. What's up, Doc? So Edgar, if people don't know, he does a show with me and Eric Nieves, another comedian. Edgar and I work with Eric on the show Brothers in Arms. It is a show about how men can talk about emotional life. It's been pretty life-changing for us all as we've gotten to know each other in that context and really walk the walk of doing that. So hopefully you guys have checked that out, but please do if you haven't already. Okay, then Jane Smith has a follow-up. And she says, undistracted equals if I have uncovered the distraction and my body doesn't need it anymore. I see. Got it. Then should the symptom just have disappeared by itself? Okay. Sorry, I was being dense about that, Jane. For some reason, it wasn't registering what you would mean by that. But now I understand it. When I read Dr. Sarno, what he talked about in terms of emotional life leading to symptoms is that the symptom is there to distract from whatever the emotional distress is. So Jane's saying, if I'm undistracted, meaning I now see this, I've uncovered it, shouldn't the symptom just go away? So given that it didn't, she has questions. Jane, it all makes sense now. Thank you for clarifying. So her questions now are, since the symptom didn't go away, was the theme wrong? Do I need to process remaining feelings? If so, how? Okay, Jane, one more assignment though. It relates to what I asked before. If you feel comfortable sharing anything about these professionals not believing the impact, that to me feels like a very important theme. And you don't even have to share what happened with that, but you could share things about the idea or the experience of not being believed in general. My question is, where does that fit in your emotions column's themes? Is there a theme built in there, Jane, that's something like, I told people what was going on. They didn't believe. You know, if that's a theme that happened, then what I'd want you to do is to link the present experience to the past. So that may be one of the things that you're missing in this equation, Jane. I'm not saying you are, but one of the things I would wonder about is, do you see the correlate between what's happening now and before? I recently was interacting with somebody on Facebook, one of the Mind-Body Connection members on the Facebook group, and she was saying that, and I think I mentioned this in a different Q&A actually, she was saying that she was going through some real angst about one of her animals, a horse. And she was so upset about it and couldn't understand why the symptoms were going up. But when I linked it to the loss of her mother, then it made more sense to her and she got more relief from the symptoms. So one of the things that could be going on, Jane, is have you linked whatever's going on in the present to the past correlate, the big things in your life that relate to that? So you asked, was the theme wrong? The theme might have been right on. But if you're only recognizing it in the present and you're not seeing how it connects to the past, the emotions column themes are really meant to connect present and past, to see the overarching theme in your life. Those themes are supposed to describe who you not only are now, but who you have always been. So that's one thing that could have gone differently. You then ask, do I need to process remaining feelings? If so, how? So that is certainly possible. It will be harder for me to answer the how without knowing some of the details. And the reason I asked, Jane, I hope you don't mind, not meaning to pry, but the objective here is to help you see how to do it for yourself. So it's in the doing it that I could help you. Now, if you don't want to talk about it here, totally understandable, but a good place to connect with me would be either in the groups, which is, you know, a little bit of a more intimate setting. But if you don't want to do it in a group, you can just send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org, and we'll discuss it. I want you all to be comfortable discussing this at whatever level you want. Trauma is not easy to talk about. And so a lot of people, these things, understandably, they could come on and say, I can ask this question generally. I do not want to get into the specifics. And I really get that. So whatever you need, Jane, let's just find a way to get that question answered, or actually asked in the right setting and then answered. What I wanted to do, though, in answering it the way that I did, Jane, is to show the group at large, anybody who's listening to this, a bit of how you'd go about it. So whether you do it here or in an email or in the groups, wherever you do it, you've got to get that question asked in the safest way that you can, that feels good enough to you. And then you can get your questions answered. Now, of course, you also have to ask them of someone whose answers you trust. So I think we're off to a good start with that, Jane. Seems that you've trusted me in the past. Hopefully I can give you more information on that. But the basic gist is, let's try to link present and past correlates, see if that's the issue. If that's not the issue, then yes. If it hasn't disappeared and it is an emotions column symptom, then there's something more specific. How do we do it? It's really in dialogue. It has some similarities to a therapy process in many ways, but it's also much more goal-directed and specific. So it wouldn't be so meandering. I would know exactly what to be looking for. And so will the people that I've trained in the work. So many, many ways to get this done, Jane. Let's just talk about what would be best for you. Okay. Patty has joined us here on YouTube. She says, I watch Brothers in Arms and I love it. Hi, Edgar. So, Edgar, you're watching on Instagram. Patty's on YouTube, but she watches it, and I'm glad you like it, Patty. Thank you for following. Okay, let's see. JD Fio has joined us on Instagram. Good to see you here. And Catherine Toomer has a comment coming in, or a question maybe. I'll have to read it on Instagram. Here she goes, Catherine. In the past few nights, insomnia has ticked up. Some things have come to light as I've journaled when it happens, like an out-of-the-blue comment to myself from my inner self. I don't know if I can do this. It's a typical theme of my suffering self for any quote-unquote job I have. The question, all worse at night, so should I do more of the processing during the day? But night is when I feel it. Okay, let's leave this up there. Really, really good question as usual. You guys ask great questions. First of all, I want to say something. Catherine, I think your process with yourself is unfolding really well. I love how you can kind of see your self-talk. For some people, they need to practice that. Take some time to get to a place where they can recognize it happening. You're seeing it happen very well. Now, it may be that you were always good at that, or maybe that you got good at it over, years of therapy, or maybe that you got even better at it recently, or got good at it recently using the columns. Whatever the case may be, you are talking to yourself effectively. You're recognizing what's happening. So remember in the doubt column, because this is a doubt that's going on. Can I do this? We observe the doubt, which means to recognize it as a doubt, to challenge it as maybe not true. Well, Catherine, you're doing that, but you've also articulated it beautifully. You said, here it is. I'm saying this to myself. I don't know if I can do this. And that's a typical theme of your suffering self for any job you have. So you're considering this a job, understandably. You want to get something done, and you've articulated it really well. Now we're going to need to counter it. At the same time, you have a question that is attached to it. So I'm going to answer that question. Then we're going to need to take this articulated out of, I don't know if I can do this, and that being a typical theme, and we're going to need to address that too. So in other words, for everybody who's watching, there are two questions or two doubts, I would say. One is a question. The other might more be a lack of certainty, could even go all the way to fear. Remember, there's a spectrum in those doubts. And that is, I don't know if I can do this. So I'm going to deal with that separately. First question, all worse at night. So should I do more of this processing during the day, but night is when I feel it? Okay. There's no hard and fast rule for this, Catherine, or anybody who's watching. I wish that there was. I know you guys want those rules, but this is why I say you've got to develop your system within my system. My system provides the framework, the columns, to understand where might you be doing the work. Well, it has provided that framework. We're doing doubt column work. Observe, articulate, and counter. When it comes to questions, though, you simply have to get them answered to your satisfaction. So I provided the framework that gives you that question. Now I got to provide you with an answer, and then we go from there. So my answer, first of all, is it's going to depend. I wish I could give you a specific one, but what I'll say is this. Try it out. You are a science experiment. We're all science experiments, so I would try it out. Let's see what happens when you do process it during the day, and give yourself a rest at night. Let's do that the first night. And then see. Now, it could be that you're going to need to find a way to do it at night because that's when you feel it, which is exactly your question, right? So I think what we need to do is to try these things out. Try one thing out. I'm going to try it during the day. I'm going to leave it alone at night. You could also try it during the day, and just dabble in it just briefly at night, just a little bit, soften it. Could be that you don't try it during the day at all and you just soften it at night. But whatever's happening, the job is to understand it. So I think what you need to do is to think about, why is it worse at night? What are the themes that are exacerbating that? Because doubt is coming in. It could be that, you're afraid to become powerful in some way. It could be that there's an emotional theme that makes the night worse in some way. The key is understanding it. So what I would say is that depends answer is all going to get taken care of when we understand what is happening. So what I want you to do is experiment with it a little bit to see what changes. But I also want you to think about what's happening here. What is at stake at night? This is a total example, Catherine. I do not know if this applies or not. I'm just giving you an idea of the kind of things it could be. At night, one of the things we struggle with is our aloneness or separation from everybody. So what I want you to do is see if you can lock down and understand, if you haven't already, what's happening there. So here's another way of putting what I'm saying. You can experiment with those different things and you can get your doubt down by seeing what happens there. But you can also do an exploration of what's happening emotionally. Get to the root of it, because if there's an uptick, that's an emotions column issue. It could lead to doubt, but it's an emotions column issue. So I want to know what's happening for you here. Let me know if that makes sense, Catherine, and we can certainly do some follow-up. Okay, Rita has joined us on Instagram. Good to see you here, Rita. Rita is a colleague of mine in the field. She does great work. Thank you for joining me here. Okay, Jane Smith has a follow-up. She says, yes, not being believed / understood might be my biggest life theme. Okay, so I had asked her, some people may be just tuning in, so I want to update them on that. We had been talking about this emotions column uptick that Jane was trying to understand, and she noted it's because of severe trauma exacerbated by top professionals not believing the impact. And this is the biggest theme of her life. So now we know, yeah, she's definitely onto something. Jane, I never doubted you for a second, no pun intended. But then we want to connect it to, how does the present day relate to the past? So then she said, recent uptick was triggered by a dream about the good psychiatrist who I resolved things with. I felt enraged. Pain worsened, though. Fascinating. Okay, Jane, let's think about what you just said. And part of the reason I'm doing this exercise is to show you what I do with myself. When I hear myself say things, I think about, what does this mean? What does it mean within a column's context? Well, you are saying that you had a recent uptick that was triggered by a dream, and it was a dream about this good psychiatrist who you resolved things with, but you felt enraged. So I've got some questions for you, Jane. I'm sorry I'm making you do some work here, but the reason I'm doing it, first of all, is to get you answers and to get you help. But secondly, I'm showing you what I do with myself. I'm showing you guys what to do with the system. So we've got a situation here where there's a good psychiatrist in the dream who I resolved things with, she says, but you felt enraged, and then the pain worsened. Well, I have a couple of questions that would be my follow-up questions. And again, this will just show you some ways to understand how to think about these things. One is, you had a dream about a good psychiatrist who you resolved something with, but you felt enraged. So I have one question. I have, multiple questions, but the first question I have is this. Did things get resolved to your satisfaction? Maybe they didn't. I'm not saying that I have no idea, Jane, but I would want to explore that, because you had a dream about a good psychiatrist who you resolved things with, and then there was rage. It could be that they didn't get resolved to your satisfaction. It also could be they did get resolved to your satisfaction, and this is actually a dream about the ones where it didn't happen. Dreams can be symbols of things. So whatever it is, we need to know, what are you mad about? And you may not know the answers to that, but we need to think about it. We need to think about, well, what left you enraged? So the pain worsening, that's an emotions column symptom. It went up. That's an uptick in pain. The question is, what's the meaning? The emotions column is all about pinpointing that meaning. Okay? So Jane, let's keep doing follow-up. If you don't mind, you're being very generous to share these things, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the trust. Hopefully what it's showing you is, how do you work this through? And we keep asking questions. We keep getting to what's actually happening. Ultimately, that's what the columns are for, is to describe what's happening? Now, Jane does have a follow-up. She says, I'm seriously enraged by the years, capital YEARS, I spent trying to get help. Jane, that is a totally understandable thing to be enraged about. I guarantee you're not alone. I think there's a ton of people out there, millions of people out there who have spent a lot of time, money, and effort trying to get help. And did they get the help they need? Listen, it's a bit of an indictment of my field, and I understand, and I actually feel the same way. I do not feel that my field has done a good enough job about this at all. I'm not saying they're not trying hard. I'm not saying that there aren't lots of good people in the field. There may or may not be. It's a mix. But the reality is, one of the reasons I developed the column system was that I wasn't getting quite good enough help, even in the mind-body experience, relieving my symptoms. And you know what I found out? The column system revealed to me I also had not gotten nearly good enough help in therapy. If anything, it revealed even more about that. I spent years trying to get help and did not get the help I need. And am I enraged about it? I guess I would say that I was. I'm not as enraged about it now because I use that anger as fuel. And my podcast, this show, my book, it's all designed to change that. So I'm getting to do something about it. For you, Jane, we might need to find a way to channel that anger and to help you feel that there's a path towards you feeling better and getting what you need. My hunch is that you're going to get a lot more of what you need in the columns work here, and that's going to alleviate a lot of that distress because you deserve that help. You should get it. And the people who are supposed to know how to help you should know how to help you. So I believe that I do, and we're going to keep working at it. But let me say one more thing, and I hope this is not annoying, Jane. You're doing great work, and it's very helpful for everybody as we do it together. But the fact that you're seriously enraged by the years you spent trying to get help, that's great. But I'm all about getting it really specifically articulated. So your first question was, do I need to process remaining feelings? If so, how? Well, we're doing it. What I'm showing you is how. We're asking the questions to get deeper and deeper until what I want to get to is a point where you're like, yes, that defines why I'm upset by this 100%. There's no question underneath it. But when you say I'm seriously enraged by the years I spent trying to get help, I totally understand why you would be. However, there's multiple reasons somebody could be enraged by that. It could be that you're mad about the incompetence of the people who were supposed to help you. It could be that you're mad that you spent the time and you're mad at yourself. I'm not saying you should be. Absolutely not. In fact, I won't get on board with that at all. I'm just saying what might be going on inside you. It could be that you're mad at the expense, and now maybe you can't spend money on something else because of it. It could be that you're mad specifically at the people involved, which I hear is part of it. I mean, there was a good psychiatrist. That means there was a bad one, right? So it could be that you are mad that they got away with it and there's nothing that you can do about it. So I just listed 5 totally different things out of thin air. Not saying they apply to you, Jane, but what I'm showing you is there are multiple things that could describe that rage. And in the emotions column, we've got to get specific. So I'm showing you how to do it. Ask the questions underneath. When you say I'm seriously enraged, the operative question, as silly as it may sound, is why? And I don't mean it why like you shouldn't be. I mean why like whatever's going on for you is 100% true. Let's figure out what it is. Jane, let's do follow-up as needed, okay? But I'm hoping that you're seeing how we dig deep here and keep going with it, okay? All right, we've got a couple people to say hi to on Instagram. We have, let's see, Denise Iaquinta has joined us, and Justine. I always mess up your Instagram name, but I remember your real name. I guess that I would hope that's more important. Okay, let's get to a couple questions on Instagram. I see Bart's question on YouTube as well, so I will get to that shortly. Okay, JDFYO or FIO has joined us on Instagram and says this. I got your PDFs a few weeks ago, and one email from you cut my neck pain in half almost immediately. That's very gratifying to hear, and I'm extremely excited that happened for you. Been listening to your podcast and working through columns, and neck pain is completely gone. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very exciting news, and I know for sure it's not exciting for anybody as much as it's exciting for you. That's really, really exciting to hear. Now, there's a follow-up. where he says, pain has been showing up. Actually, I can't. Okay, pain has been showing up in other new places since, but I'm plugging away. May need to enlist you for more help as I go, but a huge thank you to you for now. Thanks so much, JD. I don't know if your name's actually JD, but that's what I'll refer to you here, since that's the name that you've got on the handle. Thank you so much for sharing that. It really is gratifying and exciting. And one of the ways that we can think about it is if we got you that help that fast, we can do more. And so I'm here, and that's the good news. So you'll work maybe on your own for a bit and see what you can do. And you may find, reapplying this, that helps again, and you get these other symptoms under control. When you're getting better, especially from a doubt column perspective, which I would say is what you were grappling with, those PDFs and an email from me, they changed things and they reduced your doubt. Well, doubt is always going to try to come back, and it's going to try to come back with new symptoms as well. But if you keep working at that, you bring the doubt down little by little by little, or sometimes a lot by a lot. I mean, we reduced it in one email and with PDFs, and it's gone. That's significant doubt reduction. We're just going to keep doing it. If you need my help directly, you know where to find me. Dan@crushingdoubt.org. You can go to the website, www.crushingdoubt.org. You can get the seminars. You can do the memberships. I really do try to build systems that just work for people. I'm not interested in things that don't work. I don't know why anybody would be, but I'm definitely not. And I'm glad it's working. It's going to work, whether it's doing something on your own or working with me. Doubt is in trouble. It's on the ropes. It's been knocked down already. So we're going to keep at it and keep plugging away at it. You're doing great work. Please let me know if you need anything. And thank you for sharing the good news. It's really, really exciting. Glad to hear it. Okay. Bart has a question on YouTube. And then Catherine, I'm going to get back to your follow-up on Instagram. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything in there. I didn't answer Daniel's question. Daniel, I will get back to you in a second. I'm going to answer Bart's question, then Catherine. Okay, Bart says, does your method work for people with CPTSD from narcissistic abuse? Okay, so that's essentially complex trauma, which means in layperson's terms, you've been through a lot. And a lot of us have. I certainly had that as well. Some people have it worse than others in terms of what they went through. And I'll say this, my method definitely works for that. In fact, I would say that my method works better than a lot of therapies on this sort of thing. First of all, I have a very, very clear view of what narcissism is, how it unfolds, and what needs to happen. And to get away from narcissistic abuse, that clarity is incredibly important. So I do help with getting away from it. I also help a lot with the processing of it. This is a power column question. So this is for Bart, but it's also for everybody else out there. When you're talking about any kind of trauma in my system gets resolved in the power column. The power column is about your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with yourself would have been massively disrupted by any kind of trauma or abuse. So the power column is where we would do that work, Bart. And if you need to connect with me, please do. Dan@crushingdoubt.org. I know I've said that before, but if you didn't hear it before, there it is again. The power column can really help with this. Now, I was just talking to people in group about this today. The other nice thing about my system is it is designed in such a way that does not get in the way of any of your other treatments. None. In fact, one of the reasons I developed this system is that I tried to get help for mind-body issues, and I was told, no, I can't help you because you're already in one kind of treatment. Well, that is, I would say, somewhat understandable from the vantage point that that's how a lot of the therapy world thinks about things. I don't want to jeopardize one relationship by bringing in something else. My feeling was I needed a technician. I needed somebody who understood mind-body problems and was just going to talk about that. And that's what I was desperate for. Well, it didn't seem to exist out there in this particular way. People had programs. I didn't know about all of them, but certainly in the Sarno work, it seemed like people were just like, just go to therapy. I was like, I've been going to therapy for years, just like Jane had experienced. And I wasn't willing to do that. I suppose I would have been willing to do that. I was still doing it, but it wasn't something I had optimism would help. Well, in the column system, I found lots of different solutions to lots of different problems by asking questions, by following my own leads, by figuring it out myself. And one of the things I found is that power column work particularly when you do the core narrative, you come to understand what you've been through at a much more full level. I say you need to process the fullness of your trauma. And the most important word there, believe it or not, is fullness. Trauma is not even the most important word there. We all know we've been through trauma. The fullness of trauma is a different thing. That helps you understand what have you been through. So does my method work for people with complex trauma from narcissistic abuse? 100%. In fact, I couldn't find a system that would be designed better for this. There are also treatments that go along with it that do tend to help. So if you're looking for that, if you are going to therapy, I highly recommend something called brain spotting. It's something that really, really gets to deep core issues in your cortex, like your brain's cortex, deep tissue, to get at what did you go through. So hopefully that answers your question, Bart. Please do let me know. Okay, Daniel, sorry that it took so long to get to your question. I did not mean to overlook that. Daniel said, when you talk about doubt, is the doubt that fuels symptoms only doubt around TMS and pain, or any doubt we have in our lives? Like doubt or fear about a relationship can fuel pain too. Fantastic question. And the answer to that is that it is not just doubt about TMS. It is doubt about everything. And that is one of the reasons I talk about that there are 3 levels of doubt. Level 1 doubt is when you have doubt about whether it's TMS or a mind-body issue. TMS is the term Sarno used. Or is it purely physical or purely medical, something that is not a mind-body issue? That's level 1 doubt. Level 2 doubt is, I believe I have a mind-body issue 100%, but my mind-body issue seems to be harder to conquer than others. A great example of this is migraines. People bring up migraines a lot around this issue. They feel that they are harder to get past. IBS is another. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I could get rid of back pain, but not IBS. When we have symptoms that feel like they're going to be harder to get past, that's level 2 doubt. Level 3 doubt, though, is more what Daniel's talking about here. Daniel's question is about, does doubt in other areas affect you? Well, level 3 doubt is that. Level 3 doubt is, I believe I have a mind-body issue. All mind-body issues can be cured the same way, but can I do it? Doubt about the self. And not only that, there can be doubts outside of those three even. I suppose they all fit into level 3 doubt in a way. But if you have doubt about, let's say, your relationship, or your, you brought that up specifically, Daniel. I stole that idea from you. Sorry. Doubt about your career path, doubt about where you want to be. Anything that you doubt is a breeding ground for other doubts. So one way that you could say it is that because doubts build upon themselves, any doubt opens the door to more doubt. And that is why that happens. The good news is, and the power column is really where you address this. That's where you address level 3 doubts or any other doubts outside of, is this mind-body or not? And is my mind-body symptom different than others? Outside of that, you address it all in the power column. With level 1 and level 2 doubt, you can use science and logic to get rid of those. With level 3 doubt, you can't use a whole lot of science on doubts about yourself. I suppose you can use observations you've made about yourself. That can be helpful. But ultimately, you're going to have to change something that goes on inside you. And the power column is where that works. So Bart said, thanks so much for this solid answer. You are welcome, Bart. Hopefully that fits with what Daniel's saying. It absolutely is the case that my system works to make some big changes about bigger doubts, not just doubts about whether it's mind-body symptoms. Daniel, let me know if that answers your question to your satisfaction. That is always my goal. Okay. Catherine on Instagram says, my job, returning to, she was saying that, I see. You weren't talking about the job of getting better from this. You were talking about your job as a nanny to your grandchild, a job I love. I am living with my daughter, her husband, and her baby. I wonder if I am denying to myself some of my daily needs, or perhaps allowing myself to neglect other duties by the all-consuming job of nanny. My daughter and her husband are wonderfully accommodating, but it is a tiny house. Also, my husband is not here except on visits. We knew it would be difficult, but the nighttime feelings feel bigger than the obvious difficulties. I love this job, capital L-O-V-E. Maybe I don't want to admit that in certain small ways I don't like it. Anyway, I like this. The suggestions makes me feel more powerful to play with when and how I do the processing. Okay, great. So I think that this is good news, Catherine, that you are kind of liking the way that we're thinking about this. I also think you're really on the right path. We tend to have a lot of symptoms when there's conflict. And when we're loving something or when we love someone and then there's some kind of bad feeling, that tends to lead to a lot of symptoms. In my system, the power column is another way to deal with this. Typically in therapy, they tell you, let's develop shades of gray thinking. There's nuances. You can hate somebody and love somebody at the same time. That's true. 100% true. Here's where it doesn't help, though. We only know the idea intellectually. We don't feel it. It is through going through your core narrative and understanding your relationship with yourself, which the actions I have in the power column allow you to do and get at it much more specifically and much more quickly. That's how we get to understand ourselves. And that's how we get to understand that these conflicts are very real. And we feel them, and we feel how difficult they are. But Catherine, you're doing that work. And that means you don't have to stop doing this job. We just have to help tweak how are you going to do it. So maybe you do the job beautifully during the day, but then at night you got a lot to sit with. And you need to know that's going to be part of the job. In fact, when I was first training to be a therapist, that was part of what went on for me. I would get through everything just fine. And then I'd come back and be like, whew, that was a lot to process. I remember the first time I ever saw 7 patients in one day, I came back almost catatonic. It was, to take in, to be that present with people before I had learned how to do it with myself and to manage my internal systems. It was just too much overload. So Catherine, you're adjusting to that. Cut yourself a lot of slack about that. Be kind to yourself. Love what there is to love about it. And let yourself, at a later time, hate what there is to hate about it. There's always going to be things to hate about, even the things we love. Because at base, and I love how Sarno described this, we all have parts of ourselves that it may not be pretty, but it's allowed. You are allowed to feel that way. Okay, hope that helps. Okay. Denise Iaquinta said great pronunciation. Then, of course, I botched it the second time. Hopefully I did get it right. Thanks for saying that. Okay, Christine Sedita, good to see you here. Scotty Styles, good to see you. And then Daniel has some follow-up that I'm going to get to in a second. Malky Canfer, my favorite cantor, is here. He's a cantor in New York. Great to see you. Ray DeLand is here as well. Good to see you. That's Rebecca Idland, I think. Sorry, I botched the name at first. Daniel, I'll get back to you on your follow-up in a second, but I wanted to get to some YouTube questions. Patty Martin said, I feel I had major trauma, and this system is the only thing that has helped me. My life is so much better in so many ways. Patty, thank you so much for sharing that. You guys, I hope you know, listen, it's okay if you tell me this system isn't working as well for me, or I'm frustrated with it. I'm not looking for you to just tell me it's great. But when it is great and when it's helping, the fact that you tell me is very gratifying and really keeps me going. The whole thing is that when I was getting better from this, I said to myself, I can't let anybody go through what I went through. I have to do better in this. So when I hear positive things that you guys are getting helped, it is extremely, extremely helpful, and I am so grateful for it. Thank you for sharing. Thanks, Patty. Okay, Jane Smith follow-up. She says, professionals didn't believe/validate my suicidal distress exacerbated by their missing a neurological diagnosis for over 40 years. Now, just think about the rage that Jane would have. Now, you knew this. I didn't know it. But when I asked you, well, what are you mad about? You knew. I just didn't know. It helps me to answer your question to know that. Then she says they didn't know what they didn't know, and they were unkind. Okay. A couple things I want to say about this, Jane. First of all, we can be understanding to the fact that people didn't know what they didn't know to some degree. But the reality is these were professionals who were supposed to know. And I don't care whether they didn't know any better. They still harmed you. And I talk about, there's a power column action step, being fiercely in your own corner. Well, there's also another action step, which is black and white thinking, which is we do not need all of that shades of gray at every single moment. We need to be able to dip into black and white thinking and say, these so-called professionals harmed Jane. Jane, that's not okay. I know you know it's not okay, but I'm telling you, it's not okay with me. It's not okay with a lot of people. We don't want people getting hurt by that. They missed that for 40 years. And you must be really, really mad about it. What I want to do now that we've identified what it is, now I realize you already knew, but I didn't know. Now that I know, now I want to get to what are we going to do about this? And I think I said to you, I'm using my anger as fuel. I think we need to find a way to use your anger as fuel. I don't know what that's going to be yet. I have so much to learn about you. But I do know that you sitting there with that anger and feeling that there's nothing to be done about it, that I think is what that dream was about. That you just had to kind of sit there with it. And I just got a twinge of neck pain from saying it myself. I know it's true in me that I was mad about having to sit with all of that. But Jane, I think we are starting to zero in on what specifically is this. Now, I'm hoping that what I've said is helpful to you. Maybe the questions have helped you get to these things, or maybe you already knew them, but it's consolidating the information. But as we go, I want to know what you think about what would you need to feel better. Could even be a form of revenge. I sometimes joke with people that this podcast is a revenge podcast. It kind of is, because all those people who failed me, I'm exposing how they failed me and why, and how they could have done much better. So there's something to be done here, Jane. You don't have to sit with it. I think that dream was about that. But ultimately, you've got to tell me. So keep the information coming, and we will explore it. Okay, back to Daniel on Instagram. Daniel says, so level 3 doubt would be personality trait like anxiety disorder or OCD with mental rumination. People call OCD the doubting disorder, and I realize the overlap between TMS and OCD work is crazy. I shared before, I feel better when I engage in favorite activities and live my life. I think the power is my antidote to fear and doubt. So I think that's true. Being active is a way to get out of that mindset. What I want to help you with even more, though, Daniel, is that we can get you to a place where you could actually alter these things that feel unalterable. Maybe, I mean, look, people who are OCD, and by the way, I am as well in certain ways, or at least I still am to some degree, lesser than I was. When we understand ourselves in the power column, all of those symptoms don't need to be expressed anymore. And here's why. I talked about the fact that the columns each have a function. The emotions column, the function is distraction. We talked about it with Jane, that it is designed to be there as a symptom so that you don't have to know about whatever the unconscious emotion is. It's there as a distraction. In the doubt, and if you remove the function, it goes away. In the doubt column, same thing, different function. The function is the symptoms themselves want to carve out as much territory as they can for later use or to continue the use that they already have. You take away that function, you take away the doubt, then they need to start reinventing themselves. Then they start to move to a different symptom in just the way that we talked about with JD before. Again, just using the handle JD. But that function, if it's removed, the symptom comes down. That's what happened in that email in the PDF. We took away that function, boom, it's gone. Yeah, it'll try to come back with another. In the power column, the function is different. There, the symptoms are there to try to communicate something to you, where you need to know how you've suffered. You need to know it fully. Accept the fullness of the trauma. Well, when you have level 3 doubt and you have kind of personality traits that feel like they're getting in the way in some way, they're actually expressing something. They're symptoms. And it's one of the reasons I believe in diagnosis from a kind of conversational standpoint, how to communicate with each other about what's going on. But I don't believe that we're stuck with many of these diagnoses. Most of them are a communication, and we need to receive that. Okay, now Daniel had more he was saying. He said, I shared before, I feel better when I engage in favorite activities and live my life. I think the power is my antidote to fear and doubt. And a big theme is childhood abandonment, which shows up as fear of vulnerability, etc. So I know these all relate. Slowly putting the pieces together, and your column work is helping a lot. Okay, Daniel, that's wonderful to hear. Thanks again for sharing the positive news. It's a system that I built basically that just described what my experience was of being a human being in these situations. Then I found, wow, this really applies to everybody. And then I kept honing it and learning more and making it work for more and more people. So, Daniel, those are, listen, childhood abandonment, that's a big one to deal with. That's a very power column kind of thing to do, to have. it's not the kind of thing that shows up in the emotions column only. I'm sure it will be very active in the emotions column at certain times, but because it's so central, it's also going to be in the power column. Okay, glad it's helping. Let's keep up the good work. All right, Rebecca says, yes, I did get her name right. Do you think indifference is the stage you need to reach for pain to dissipate? Okay, great question. What I'd say is this. Indifference is one of the methods that can make pain dissipate, but it has to be the right method. You know, if you are kind of obsessing about it and you can get that to click, oh, I just need to not give it so much power, and then it goes away. Here's the thing. If it works, it works. So Dan Buglio, he's great in the mind-body field. He talks about indifference all the time. I think he helps people a lot to have that as one of the options. The way I think about it, though, is we've got multiple options, lots and lots of options. The columns organize those options. So indifference is a place where you're actually, in some ways, putting doubt to rest. I don't need to keep thinking about this. I don't need to worry, can I get past this? And instead think, I don't need to pay so much attention to it. The fear goes down and the pain can dissipate. So yes, indifference is something that some people need to get pain to dissipate. My question is this. Within the column system, another way of thinking about this is each symptom comes from different things. So if overthinking it and paying lots of attention to it is leading to the symptoms, indifference is going to help. But if you haven't processed an emotion that needs processing, is indifference really going to help? It could bring down your fear. That always helps. But will it help enough? Probably not. You're probably going to need to go to that part of the system. To me, the columns map it out very clearly, these different parts of the systems. And there's only 3 columns, which is great. And they cover the whole ground. So I'll keep showing you guys how. But I gave you a long answer, Rebecca. But the short answer is, yeah, indifference can help. Is it always the answer? No, it's going to depend on the situation. But that is a doubt column solution and a very powerful one at that. So, Rebecca, let me know if that answered your question. We're going to finish up on this. Jane Smith had a follow-up. Oh, Dr. Dan, you are so kind about it that it's hard for me not to smile, receiving your understanding and empathy even while feeling rage. I'm very appreciative of kindness due to my past. Thank you. Jane, thank you. These words mean a ton to me because I know what it means. I know what it's like. I have been in situations where people were not empathic enough to me, where I didn't even believe that empathy could happen. And I did a podcast a while back, probably over a year ago, on the importance of being angry on people's behalf. Because I kept looking and saying, why is nobody mad on my behalf? And it's not that I wanted people to feel sorry for me, but the fact that they weren't angry on my behalf really didn't seem to fit with people caring. When people hurt people that I care about, that makes me mad. And I just don't understand why people don't do that. So it's part of how I build in how I'm empathic. I don't like that happens to people. I don't like that it's happened to any of you. And I appreciate you being part of my community. So thank you so much. We have Karen Isaacs. I missed your first statement. So I'm actually going to jump back to that and then get to your last one. We'll finish up on this. Karen said, I need so much reassurance. I'm addicted to it. I'm 61 and finally learning to not go outside for it. My biggest issue has always been I feel scared from every little thing. I crave safety like a drug. So, Karen, do not be hard on yourself about this. You probably haven't had nearly the reassurance you should have had along the way. And I know your story. This is a craving of what's missing in your childhood. You didn't get it. You deserve to get it. I want you to give it to yourself now. If it's through me for a while, so be it. You deserve it. And you will start to build it into yourself. You're working there. You're doing a good job. Now, Karen has a follow-up. She says, I love options. Indifference was huge for my healing. When I'm in that headspace, I feel powerful. And Karen said, yes, your kindness soothes my soul. I want to put you in my back pocket. Okay, well, I'm there, at least in the back of your mind. You can try to put me in your pocket, but I'm 6'3", so you need a big pocket. But it really means a lot to me that you say that and that I helped that much. So, Karen, let's keep at it. I am here with you no matter what. Okay, Daniel Starkey will finish up on this. Daniel says, I also agree about the diagnoses and don't feel like I'm OCD, in quotes. I think the OCD-like behavior and anxiety were just ways that my fear manifested to try and keep me safe. I see them as TMS symptoms. Great. I'm totally with you on that. So keep up the good work. Jane Smith says, ha, ha, ha. I think that was me being 6'3" in pockets. She says, we all want Dr. Dan in our back pockets. Thank you, Jane. I appreciate it. Angel HW's joined us on Instagram. Good to see you. You're joining just at the tail end, so please join us in 2 weeks. That's when my Q&A will be back. It's usually every Monday, but I'm out for Labor Day. Rebecca says, how come some long haulers with TMS see their symptoms dissipate after 12 months without doing any mind-body work? How can we classify that as TMS then? Okay, great question. And I wish I could give a full answer, but we do have to wrap up very shortly because I'm over time. So, Rebecca, here's what I'd say. If the symptoms start to dissipate, one of the things that might be going on, I don't know, is that their doubt might start to come down. They might just start to think, it can't last this long. There's no reason for it. And as they keep bumping up against it, I think they get to more and more answers. But what I'm going to do, Rebecca, is I want to put your question down. I'm going to put it in the preloaded questions because I didn't get to do that justice enough, and it's a really good question. So I will answer it in 2 weeks. I'll put it in there, and I'll make sure that it does get answered. If you need a specific answer faster, email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. And it's a great question. So anybody with questions about that, let's bring it back next time. Thank you so much for joining me. Scotty says, bravo. Have a great 2 weeks. You too, Scotty, and everybody who joined me here. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, and we will keep up the good work. Thanks so much, everybody.